Thank you, Kevin. Okay, thank you. This is meeting 4. Welcome everybody to meeting 4 of the Traffic Mitigation and Safety Task Force being held today, July 31st, 2024 at 2 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to our chairs in just a moment, but if you might indulge me, we have our agenda. Is this available for folks? Do you know? Yeah. Okay. That's great. So our agendas are available if you want to grab one, just so you can follow along with us. We're going to start off today first with a couple of comments from myself, but we're going to then go to an update from Suffolk County DPW on the status of their County Road 39 corridor study. So they're going to give us a little bit of a presentation about where we're at in terms of the county corridor study of County Road 39. We were supposed to have a Noyak Road update from Council Member Tommy John Schivoni, but he's actually not going to be here. So our co-chair, Tom Neely, will give a little bit of an overview of that project. Then our co-chair will also go into additional presentations on traffic data and something called the 3 E's. We'll then move on to reviewing some of the emails and comments that we've received. We'll have an update from our supervisor, Maria Moore. We may take her point here out of order, just so we can make sure we're satisfying the time constraint that we have. And we'll also get some updates from our police chief, James Kiernan, who's here with us as well. Why don't we go across, just take attendance, who's here? I think legislator Ann Welker is joining us on Zoom and couldn't be here. I also know Lisa Gore is also running a little bit behind. She may or may not be here. But if we want to just start from that end of the table and just go along, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Jason Cordy, former captain from the Southampton Fire Department.
Jim Kiernan, Chief of Police, Southampton Town.
Charlie McCardle, Highway Superintendent, Southampton Town.
Tom Neely, Town Transportation Consultant.
Bill Manger, Mayor, Village of Southampton.
Maria Moore, Town Supervisor, Southampton.
Michael Iacilli, Town Council Member. And I just want to thank my legislative aide, Paula Godfrey, who's here, who's been taking notes and who's really been doing just such a great job putting these meetings together, making sure the public has notice and the minutes are accounted for and that we're posting all the videos online. So thank you so much for all the work you're doing. I just want to make a statement before I hand it over to our co-chairs. This task force was formed because we understood that there have been ongoing concerns as it relates to traffic. And I've been traveling and I have to tell you, this summer it's been brutal. We've been taking a lot of comments over the past few months since we started the task force. And we've been taking those comments at the podium and via email. We set up an email, traffic@southamptontowny.gov, and we've been receiving quite a bit and a lot of interesting comments. The public comment aspect to this task force is, I think, precisely what makes this effort unique. This exercise has been extraordinarily helpful for the town to become more enlightened and more informed about what the public is facing in certain parts of the town. And while we are analyzing the key problems, the main arteries, traffic safety measures that are necessary, we also are listening to the people and finding ways to solve the various issues that come to us. Whether it's speed, cut through traffic, we're looking at it all. And I want to credit this approach in particular, this thinking outside the box, to our co-chair, Charlie McCardle, who's really been one of the main voices over the past few years calling for new methods and practices that are outside the box. And I also want to thank Charlie, your office, for being exceptionally responsive to all the constituent concerns that come to our desk. Whenever we need a speed monitor, your office, Deputy Superintendent Mark Brager is out there working the crew leaders to make sure that they get to where they need to go. And also the site visits. Tom Neely as well has been, our other co-chair has been joining me on some site visits. It's just been great coordination between various departments. Also, you know, we recognize, and our co-chair, Tom Neely, has been very focused on this as well, is finding ways to address these more systemic problems in a comprehensive way. We know that there are main choke points in Watermill, Hampton Bays, County Road 39. And 39, of course, being the main artery that leads to other traffic issues throughout the town. The county's corridor study of 39 is of great interest to the town and its people. And that is another reason why we formed this task force, because we want to be a part of the conversation that the county is leading on. And I'm happy to report that County DPW has an update for us today. And Chief Engineer Bill Hillman, Alex Prego are here. We appreciate that you've joined us today. And we'll get a status on that. And we also know, based on some of the information that we have received from the people, that we need to look at how roundabouts can work in the peripheral areas outside of County Road 39. You know, I would like to at some point call on our co-chairs as well as town engineer Tom Houghton, who couldn't be here today, but to maybe work on creating maps and renderings on where those roundabouts can go. I know the Supervisor Moore has been looking at this as it pertains to Watermill and Hampton Bays. And so we want to provide more visuals for the public so you understand what we're thinking about as well. And we'll also at some point publish those renderings and thoughts and ideas and concepts in our final report. I do have several key highlights from our meetings that I do want to review, but I'm not going to review them until we get through some of the agenda items today. I want to make sure we have enough time for everybody and also enough time for public comment. So I'll pass it over to Tom, who will help us lead into our next agenda item with the county. So, and also Charlie, thank you very much to the both of you for helping chair these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. The number one item on our agenda, the first item today, is a County Road 39 study update from Suffolk County DPW. And here to review that with us is the Chief Engineer for the county, Bill Hillman.
Good afternoon. Again, Bill Hillman, Chief Engineer, Suffolk County Department of Public Works, along with me is the Assistant Chief Engineer, Alex Prego.
Welcome. Thank you both
Thanks
for
for being
joining
here.
us today.
You're very welcome. Happy to give you an update and go over some ideas and thoughts that we have right now. So, quick agenda, introductions, project location, project goals, background, tasks, timelines, size and scope of the congestion, a little history lesson, it's my personal favorite, roadway capacity, discussion, alternatives, and a Q&A if necessary. So project location, I'm sure everybody in this room knows where County Road 39 is. That's an easy one. Project goals, improve capacity is the major goal. Reduce congestion, vehicle delay, air, noise, pollution on CR 39. Reduce local detours, congestion, and alternate routes. And here's my, again, personal favorite: reduce congestion in downtowns, Hampton Bays, Southampton, Watermill, Bridgehampton, Wainscott, East Hampton. I'm sure everyone wants their downtown back, so that's, I think, a big one. Safety on County Road 39, bringing it up to today's standards. A little background. So the Suffolk DPW team is intimate, very intimate with County Road 39. I was hired in 2004. We had this very similar circumstances back then. School children were waiting on buses, or being on buses for hours. Nurses and doctors couldn't get to the hospital. Teachers couldn't get to schools. Employees couldn't get to jobs. Very, very similar situation. We then widened the roadway, studied the roadway, widened the roadway in 08 and 13.
Since then, a lot of that capacity that was generated has been chewed up, if not all of it. In around 2015 is when we started talking to the town again about, what's the condition of the roadway. When we talk travel runs later on, myself, Alex Prego, our director of traffic, Neve Parada, we did those travel runs. When I say that there's probably no three people other than myself, Alex, and Neve that know County Road 39 better, I would bet my house on that. We understand the complexities of the roadway. We understand the complexities of the congestion and what's causing it, and potential solutions. We need to study it all. I'm not saying we don't need to study it, but we have a very good grasp and concept of what the issues are. There's no one else out there. We can hire consultants. We can hire as many consultants as you want to study this, but ultimately, I can tell you that the three of us know more about County Road 39 than anybody on this planet. So that's just a preface. So obviously, there's major congestion. County Road 39 is a critical artery. It's the only major roadway east of Shinnecock Canal. Just think of that. There's no other roadway, no other multi-laned roadway east of the Shinnecock Canal. So for all the South Fork, there's one roadway. That's part of the problem. So as far as our study goes, data collection, conceptual development, planning and analysis, public outreach. We're going to have extensive public outreach. Some of the solutions we're going to have are going to push the envelope, and there's going to have to be extensive public outreach. So project timeline. We are in the data collection phase right now. We started that before the summer. We need summer data. That's the most important data that we can collect. Sometime in the fall, we expect to have a public information meeting. That would probably be my last meeting, just so everyone is aware. It would be multiple. After that first one, we'll have multiple public meetings along the way. We'll be crunching data, coming up with alternatives. So we're looking mid-25 is when we'll start to really get into discussions about what potential solutions are. Size and scope of the congestion. So I think we can all agree that there's severe congestion. It's congesting our downtowns. There's significant use of local roads to bypass the congestion. The entire roadway network east of Sunrise Highway is insufficient. The peak periods, we used to call it the peak hour. Remember that? The peak hour. It's now 5 hours. So we call it a peak period now. And this is one of the largest peak periods I've ever seen in my career. Again, I've been a traffic engineer for 35 years. And I've worked on, JFK Expressway, JFK Airport, Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel, the George Washington Bridge. Not many of those facilities, which are major facilities, have a peak hour of 5 hours. So it's a daunting task. We have a freeway leading into a multi-lane highway, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper, but that's one of the major problems. Truck traffic. There's been a significant increase in truck traffic from over the last decade. When we widened in 08 and 13, we did not have to accommodate this type of truck traffic, and that's a major difference in the increase in traffic that we've seen from the early 2000s to now. So we did a quick origin destination study, and I'll just go over this very briefly. We're going to do this in much more detail as the study progresses. but essentially 60% of the vehicles are destined for south of or east of CR 39. So if you see the red area on the map, it's circled in red, that's 46% of their traffic, and I called that in the vicinity of County Road 39. So 46% of the traffic is staying in the vicinity of County Road 39. The blue, which is the north side of the South Fork, that's about 32% of the vehicles are destined for those locations. And about 30%, it's surrounded in yellow, is destined for the south side of the South Fork. So again, what we intend to do is try and better define where people want to go and then try and help them get there. Land use, I won't spend a whole lot of time on this. Suffolk County does not get involved in land use, but I'm sure everyone's aware that land use is a big driver, and both the town of Southampton and town of East Hampton, I think, do a very good job at managing land use, and it really needs to continue, and maybe some innovative ideas on that end could help. And my favorite slide, the history lesson. So 1969, there was $160 million to extend Sunrise Highway. Think of that. $160 million in 1969. That was a lot of money. In 1970, the town, I think, had its first master plan. 1972, the community opposed extending Sunrise Highway. 1975, the governor canceled the Sunrise Highway project. 1984, New York State DOT did a South Fork transportation study. In 1996, we have another study, the EETC. 1999, we have another study. In 2000, we have another study and task force. 2001, we have another study. 2005, study. 2009, study. Okay? 2008 and 13, Suffolk County widened County Road 39. So here we are in 2024. What are we going to do? Actually, this is my favorite slide. So in 1984, New York State DOT's study had some very, very good conclusions, and they still apply today. Public transit on its own cannot solve this problem. We often hear, let's put more people on trains and buses. That's a part of it, but nowhere near the ability to handle the amount of volume that needs to come onto the South Fork. The study concluded solutions to the transportation problems on the South Fork cannot be confined or limited to only East End roadways or just the state system. The situation must be viewed from an area-wide and statewide perspective. Viable alternatives include construction of village bypasses, new roadways, possibly on the Long Island Railroad or Long Island Railroad right-of-way, a combination of all those things, roadway improvements, alternative routing, transit improvements. So all those things still apply. And here's the kicker. The study concluded it was not possible at this time to build consensus on the South Fork community, which would lead to a constructible transportation solution. And that's why we've been studying it for 30 years. So again, I go back to real quick, flashing signals, travel runs. Back in 2015, the county was asked to, see if we could flash signals to make things better. Along with flashing signals comes limiting left turns, limiting side street movements. You now need to have a police presence on site, flashing lights. People are standing in the street. So it did not work well because of those things. People slowed down at the intersections. It wasn't like you removed the signal and it was just free flow. There were all these distractions to the driver. So we did travel runs where we came out at 5 a.m. and just kept doing loops. And we essentially determined that, so we had data before the signals were turned on, then we had data while the signals were turned on. And we determined that actually it was detrimental to the roadway. We had an increase of 1 or 2 minutes to the travel times. So, and again, myself, Alex, Neve, and the higher echelon of the traffic engineering department We did those travel runs. We saw it with our own eyes. We wanted to see it with our own eyes so that we could stand in front of, a task force like this and community members and speak to it personally.
When you say before the cones or flashing lights were in place, do you mean that day or before the program started at the same time that it would have been? Because
Yeah,
if
good.
you were there earlier in the morning, maybe the traffic's not
Good question.
at the same level.
We did it a week before. The first week, we did travel runs, say, if we were going to do a flashing program, say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The week before, we did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we had every day the week before. Then during the flashing, we had travel runs for while the signals were on flash as well. So it was very, very compatible data.
And when was that?
Let me go back.
Sorry.
No worries. 15, 16, and 22. I think in 22 we only flashed one signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit of traffic engineering geek talk, and I'll rush through this quickly, but I'm going to turn it over to Alex. So the thing that I want to stress is, if you look at the top table, these are theoretical numbers out of textbooks, okay, and it's me and Alex sit around during lunch and we talk about this stuff, and we talk about how we have a real world situation matching up with our textbooks, and it's amazing to us how we see it just flow. So anyway, we have a freeway that can handle around 2,800 vehicles per lane, and you have Sunrise Highway coming in, so that's 4,800 vehicles feeding County Road 39. County Road 39 is not a freeway, it's a multi-laned highway. Well, that can only handle, I can't even see that, 2,900 vehicles? Yeah. So there's a difference per lane of 750 vehicles per hour. So that's 1,500 vehicles when you multiply it by 2 lanes. 1,500 vehicles per hour could be on Sunrise Highway that are destined for County Road 39. So that's a difference of 750 vehicles per lane. And that's the problem. You have this freeway leading to a multi-laned highway. And Alex, I'll turn it over to you to.
Yeah, so we could talk about what the difference is
You
between
want to come to the mic because I think they're recording.
the differences between a freeway and a multi-lane highway. What are those differences? Well, we know Sunrise Highway, multiple lanes, wide shoulders, no driveways, no side streets, nothing like that to impede the flow. As you get to County Road 39, you end up on a multi-lane highway where now you have almost no shoulder. You have friction from driveways and side streets. Now that's what reduces that capacity down. Again, these theoretical numbers of about 750 per lane. Now, when we talk about capacity, we have theoretical capacity. Then you have what actually you can count. So we talk about capacity, but then you also talk about how many people actually pass a certain point in a road. So when somebody counts a road, they're actually counting the number of vehicles that pass by a point. Well, if you're on bumper-to-bumper traffic, it's not always moving so well. So the volume sometimes is not meeting what people want to do. So there's a very distinct thing, what a count is versus what the demand is versus what the capacity is. Mm-hmm. So when we look at this table, you can see the total capacity of the freeway is 4,400. The multi-lane would be about 2,900. Now, if you look at what we actually counted on Sunrise Highway was 2,900. So that tells me, again, we're sitting here and that number jumped out of the page at me. I couldn't believe it. That number is almost identical to the capacity of the multi-lane highway at 2,900 as well. So that tells us right now that County Road 39 is metering Sunrise Highway. It's bringing it in that way. And that's what you see right at about Hill Station Road. Mm-hmm. You see it right there. That's almost the exact spot where you have the gas station and you have the side street. That's where you see a lot of delays occurring. East of that, I'm not going to say it's pure free flow speed or anything like that, but that is where a lot of that backup occurs. The vast majority of that backup occurs. And we saw that with our travel runs. When we did the before and after, the vast majority of the delay was west of Hill Station Road. That's right where that point is. So that's a very important thing. But as you go further down the slide, you start seeing things like drawn from Montauk Highway. We know that people on Montauk Highway through Hampton Bays that don't really want to be on Montauk Highway and Hampton Bays. They want to be on County Road 39 and Sunrise Highway. So we know if you improve capacity to County Road 39, you're going to be pulling against some unmet demand from Montauk Highway. Also, there's additional unmet demand that is sitting in traffic on Montauk Highway going all the Sunrise Highway west of Hill Station Road. So again, you improve County Road 39, you're pulling more traffic on there. So we don't have to just improve County Road 39 to the traffic that we can count on it today. It's what traffic wants to be there today and wants to be there in the near future. So that's as we get into these public meetings, these kind of things are going to be very important. Things capacity versus demand versus what you actually count on the road.
So one more point on this. So when you have the existing volume on Sunrise Highway plus the unmet demand, it's essentially 4,000 vehicles. Then you have to add a growth factor onto that because we're going to get federal money for this job. County can't afford it. The feds are going to require at a minimum a 20% growth factor on top of that. So you're going to put 4,000 times 20% is 4,800. So that means a 3-lane highway. So if you take the original number of, I can't even see it anymore. 1,450, 3-lane multiple highways. So 3 lanes. If you expanded County Road 39, you'd add another lane. You'd add another 1,450 per hour. You'd have a total of 4,350 per hour. Well, we're already at 4,800. So we're standing here to tell you today that you could add a 3rd lane to County Road 39, and it's most likely not going to meet the demands. So you need something more than just adding a 3rd lane. That's not going to work. That was pretty shocking to us when we came to that conclusion. So what does the future look like? Not really sure. And we're not here to tell you what it's going to look like. But what we want to do is help guide this community and elected officials to what will work. And see if we can finally get to a point where we can all get on the same page and maybe make some improvements. But they will be big. We need to think big. This is not a small problem. This is a huge problem. Things we've heard, or things I've heard over the last 20 years, County Road 39 is the gateway to the East End. I get it. I don't dismiss that. But we need to think big. If you want to solve the problem, it's going to have to be big. Those solutions don't fit the character of the community. Still, get it. But just adding a roundabout, taking out signals and putting roundabouts in, not going to do a thing. Not going to do a thing. So I close, I'm not going to close, but I'll close this slide with, you can't be everything to everyone. We're either going to solve the problems or we're going to leave the community the way it is because of the character of the community. And those are decisions beyond us. We're engineers. We don't make those decisions. We can tell you what's going to fix the roadways and fix the capacity. Whether the community wants to do it, that's not a D. That's not an R. You know, these aren't. A lot of times these get politicized. As engineers, these are just issues for us, and I just hope that this community can put those political issues aside and get to a point where we can talk real solutions. Whether those real solutions ever materialize or not to be determined, or yet to be determined. But let's talk non-politics. That would be my. I'm retiring in 3 months, so I'm speaking, free. So with that as a base, I just want to go back real quick to the project goals. Okay. So reduce congestion in the downtowns. Again, we can all agree that that's a very important goal. And just keep that in mind. If we could wave a magic wand and fix County Road 39, what did we do? We took the congestion off of Sunrise Highway and we moved it onto County Road 39 because we didn't do anything else. So that's all going to be on Montauk Highway. It's going to be going up County Road 52, Sandy Hollow Road, County Road 38. They're going to be making lefts on Shrubland and trying to weave their way through. That's all going to continue to happen because we didn't solve the problem. We did something. We improved County Road 39. People will probably be able to get to Southampton a little bit better. Bridgehampton may be a little bit better, but we didn't solve any problems. All right, so how do we achieve these goals? Alternate routes, to me, there's got to be some combination of alternate routes, improvements to County Road 39, transit has to be involved as well, workforce housing, land use, all those things it has to be a holistic approach. So while it's a County Road 39 study, it needs to be so much more. And what do those alternative routes look like? I'm not sure. Are we going to build something on the railroad? Okay, I highly doubt that's going to happen. However, it's an option. LIPA right-of-way. That may be a very good solution. All right. I'm sure the people that live adjacent to that right-of-way are not going to be happy. But again, back to you can't make everyone happy. All right. So what do those alternate routes look like? I'm not sure, but we're going to have to explore them. We're going to have to vet them with the public and see what is the least bad choice. All right? I mean, none of these choices are going to be good, but what's the least bad choice? Maybe it's a combination of those things too, because the LIPA right-of-way might go in one direction, but we need another road in another direction. So maybe some town road or county road has to get improved beyond what we would want it to be. So there's going to be some tough choices. Specific to County Road 39, what might that look like? If 3 lanes aren't going to work, I mean, elevated roadway. You know, that sounds crazy. Our commissioner talks about a tunnel. I mean, there's nothing off the table at the moment. We have everything on the table. And trust me when I tell you, the congestion, the seriousness of the congestion warrants this type of discussion if you want to solve the problem. You know, I liken the South Fork to the Cape up in Massachusetts. Very, very similar. You have a canal, you have 2 bridges going over it, and then not a whole lot of options after that. And they live with it. You know, if this community says, we're good, take all your engineering solutions and go away, and you want to live with the congestion, that's an option. You know, the null alternative, when we study this, the null alternative, the do nothing alternative is an option. But you got to accept it and then move on and say, we're going to just live with the traffic. I mean, when you go to the BQE in Manhattan, there's no solving those problems. You know, those you live with the congestion. So that's some of the solutions that might be out there. They're going to be tough. They're going to be hard pills to swallow. We'll define them in much greater detail at some point in the near future. But again, I can tell you they will be something like that. They will be large, extensive. That's it.
Appreciate your comments, Bill and Alex, and having worked with you guys since 2005, I will say you're always honest. And that's why you're never going to run for office. Okay?
Absolutely right.
Chief Engineer, I wanted just to, and if anybody had a question, I just want to ask if we're not considering a 3rd lane, which I think would actually not be a good idea, to 39. Our last meeting, Jay Fitzpatrick, who's here in the room, did give a presentation of a larger scope of ideas.
Yep.
that utilize or explore the LIPA right away, explore the LIRR. Is County DPW working in the process of talking to the LIRR or LIPA as for possible improvements, what we can and cannot do?
We will. We haven't yet.
Okay.
We're just not there yet. We're collecting data until we can legitimately say, what can we handle on County Road 39? What do we need to move off to some other roadway? Mm-hmm. we can't really have a legitimate discussion.
Right.
And you know, there are other solutions on County Road 39. For example, we could have you'd have to eliminate left turns on County Road 39, but you could have an express lane essentially down the middle. There'd be barriers on each side, but you would, you know, people destined for the end of, or for some other alternative route. Say we were able to develop an alternative route on a LIPA right-of-way. Well, we got to get them from the Sunrise Highway to this LIPA right-of-way. Well, maybe that section of roadway of County Road 39 needs to be completely rethought and have an expressway down that. Drastic change, I get it, but we now move the traffic from Sunrise to this LIPA right-of-way. So there's going to be opportunities. I'm not saying County Road 39 will have no improvement, and maybe there are something less than an elevated roadway or a tunnel. There are those options as well.
If I could follow up, Bill, little more serious note. We have worked together for an awful lot of years, and you know, seeing that long list of studies and proposals and ideas over the years, as part of this committee's work, I've drafted something which is a list of all the infrastructure proposals, ideas, concept plans that have been developed over the years. Not as comprehensive as yours. I'm going to have to take a few off of your notes there. So I have two kind of questions. I assume you're working very closely with the DOT. That was going to be part of your original RFP, and obviously County Road 39 ends right where 27 begins. So I would presume DOT is or will be involved in these discussions going forward.
Yes, they will to some extent. Essentially, our road, as Alex explained, our road is really backing up onto their road. So,
Okay.
you know, if the discussion from their end is really going to be get your traffic off of our roadway.
Right.
But yeah, they're definitely going to be.
As you pointed out, the issues don't end when you hit Watermill. They
Oh,
continue
you mean on that end of it?
They could, yes, the
Yes.
east end of it.
So yes, you know, our study again is for County Road 39. We're hoping we can have some larger discussion with the community at large. If we believe that we have support, I think that it's logical to then loop in the state, because yes, we'd be dumping them all onto Montauk Highway.
Right.
I think it's incumbent upon the county to kind of vet a lot of this before we start investing a lot of time with others.
Okay.
I think it's important to identify what the problem is, really understand it, and so that and with data, so that we're not standing up here just saying, "Trust me, I'm an engineer, and I got 35 years experience." So, but we're going to have data to back all this up, so that we can then talk to the community and say, "Here are the challenges. Here are what we think are some of the solutions." And if we get some buy-in, I think it's then we're able to take the next step.
Okay. Good.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you need hard numbers to have those hard conversations with LIPA, with Long Island Railroad, and frankly with the state and FHWA for funding as well. You
Right.
need hard numbers to have those hard conversations. True with them and also with the public as well too.
Right.
So
Right.
that's it. That's where we are. That's what we're doing right now, getting that data collection and analyze the existing conditions, and then have those hard conversations.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned the word funding, because that's another thing that we've kind of been talking about, you know, getting to the topic of funding at some point. I don't know if right now is the right time to kind of generally talk about how that process works, or if maybe we can invite you to come back to the meeting next month, where we may talk about some of these projects that have been proposed and kind of revisit some and talk about funding.
Yeah, I can give you a very brief overview. So, federal money flows to three primary entities: New York State, Nassau County, and Suffolk County. New York State gets the lion's share of it. Actually, the Long Island Railroad gets their money just taken off the top. And then the three partners, I'll say, we kind of identify our projects and our needs, and we negotiate essentially for projects. So but New York State, they have the largest system on the island, so clearly they get the largest piece of the pie. So then once that's determined, Suffolk County has pretty good flexibility on determining what we want to spend our money on. I will say we have a lot of needs. We're spending $180 million on Smiths Point Bridge. We have a lot of needs on our structural end. We built a lot of bridges in the 50s. They're coming to the end of their useful life. We'll have a lot of bridges that need to be replaced. So we already have a very robust federal aid program. Not to say that we can't fund particularly studies and design projects, but projects that we would envision on the scale that we're looking at. If we ever get to a point where we can say these are some things that actually may work and the community would accept, trust me, we're going to pivot to the state and say, this is truly going to become an extension of County Road 27. Why don't you take this on? But that's a ways away. But we have funding to get us through some of the design, clearly the studies and the designs, but to fund these huge mega projects that we're envisioning, it's going to be tough.
And I think Bill was speaking about a lot of the current normal federal aid that we deal with. There's also other opportunities that come up. They tend to be competitive by nature. So again, the hard numbers and showing the actual improvement over a 20, 30-year life cycle plays heavily into that. Because you have to always justify the federal money that you're going to get, which is what this is going to require. And even more so if they're for competitive funding sources, which they may be.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And also, please relay our gratitude to Commissioner Bartha, who sits on this task force. He couldn't be here today, but we appreciate that he is committed to also helping us through this process. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Did you want to talk first before? Do you want to take it out of order?
Yeah.
All right, just Tom and Charlie, in the interest of time, can we just move agenda item 6 out of order, just so Maria can talk a little bit about the roundabouts?
Sure.
And then we'll go to your presentations.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Just, to recap, we're not just looking at County Road 39 in these meetings. We're trying to look at other issues on the side roads as well. And I became aware that there were some renderings from New York State for 3 traffic circles that they said they thought had merit. It's not the solution, but it's worthwhile, I think, to look into it. One is they're at either end of Watermill. One's at Little Cobb Road, and the other is at Scuttlehole Road. And then there's one in Hampton Bays by where the old diner, the abandoned diner, is located. So I did speak with Brett Thiel about, if we were going to pursue that, what are the next steps? Because these were done quite some time ago. And he said he would arrange for a meeting with the regional director from the Department of Transportation to talk about funding and next steps. So I'm looking forward to engaging with him on that. And speaking about this with Tom Neely, he let us know that there were also some designs in place for Bridgehampton and Head Pond, Deerfield Road. So there are things that were done, studies, evaluations that we can take off the shelf and look at. Perhaps they were shelved because there was no funding, and maybe that's there's something's changed now, or there's more funds available, more collaboration. So that's just what I wanted to say about the traffic circles. I think they work. It's not going to solve everything, but it's worth investigating, in my opinion. And I think that Council Member Iacilli agrees that we should spend a little time delving into that.
Yeah, especially those key choke points in Watermill.
Mm-hmm.
I think that affects Southampton. It affects everyone, and I know that it gets really backed up over there. So if we could try to free up that traffic, and I think the traffic circles can demonstrate that, and the state does agree with that conclusion. I think that would be very good.
And they already, they provided some renderings to us. So,
And this is, by the way,
Both
not in
ends.
lieu of the County Road 39 improvements. This is also in addition to.
but I think as, you know, the presenters indicated, that's gonna be a long, years of studying and
To figure it out.
evaluating the data and talking about solutions and getting the funding. So if there is some things we can talk about, like the zipper lane down to move the traffic along, we should implement some of these changes at least to
In the
get
interim.
some relief. Yes.
In the interim.
Okay, Lisa. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Did you have something else?
No, I was just going to say I'd like to also include as a possible, analysis that light in Watermill as well. So it's not only where Cobb Road enters Montauk Highway, but it's also that light in Watermill that is really a major choke point.
Well, I think Tom, is it true if we were to look at these two renderings from the state, that would actually take out the light, correct?
Right. The
Would it?
idea would be to
Yeah.
bookend Watermill with two roundabouts. You remove the signal in the middle,
Okay.
and you have no left turns. So anyone that needed to go, if you're on the south side, or if you want to go west, you'd make a right, go to the roundabout, and come back. If you're on the north side and wanted to go
I see,
east,
I see.
you'd go
Yeah.
to the
I'm
roundabout
following, yeah.
and go east that way.
And last week I brought those renderings up on the Zoom when I was Zooming in that meeting. I was not feeling well. But we could maybe revisit those again, and they'll be in the final report for sure.
Right. And some of these others, we're going to go try to find those early concept drawings. And as I said, maybe we'll go over this at the next meeting
Sure.
if that's appropriate.
Yeah. And did you want to just give a quick update about the Noyak Road?
Yeah, just briefly, Councilman Schiavone could not be here. I had worked with him prior to my leaving the town in 2021. I had worked with him and our town engineer at the time, Christine Fenton, on early plans for a sidewalk along Noyak Road from Brook Hill up to about the Trout Pond area, and including improvements at the Long Beach Noyak Road intersection. The town, long story short, I think the town put up some matching funds and applied for a grant and has received a grant for that project. But I think to give it a fuller explanation, Councilman Schiavone plans to be at our next meeting and maybe tell us a little bit more about
great.
that.
Great.
So,
But is that if the grant money's been approved, is that slated then to go forward?
if the grant money's approved, it's the expectation it would go forward. Yeah.
So, Michael, I do have a few things. First of all, Bill and Alex, thank you very much. And it took me a little while, I guess, as a freshman superintendent. My wheels are spinning and coming up with ideas, and I'm sure you guys hear it all the time. I know you've been in place for a lot longer. So I do appreciate your thoughts and putting me in place on some of my ideas, which is fine. One of the things is that, first of all, I'm very happy that we are not political with this committee, and it's one of the things that I'm very happy about. The problem with the traffic has no political lines at all. It affects us all, and it is a mixed barrel up here, which is good. A lot of what you talked about is the morning traffic, and I think the mayor would agree. We have a tremendous problem in the afternoon, which is in reverse of what you're saying. We have 39 leading into Sunrise, which becomes the drag strip to get out of town. So I just hope as the study continues that the thoughts of the afternoon continue. You brought up the numbers on the capacity, and it just brings me back. And again, I know I'm a freshman here. My thoughts on, and I would hope Maria could maybe have the town attorney look, if we were to come up with a plan where the trade people could not start work in the town of Southampton until 9:30 a.m., and if we get our colleagues to the east to agree, and maybe in East Hampton Town, the vendors can't start till 10 a.m., although that peak hour that you talked about would now become 6 hours, I think the capacity on 39 would be, it'd be less but longer, and maybe the congestion would work. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something to solve that. If we spread out who's allowed to be there or who's going to be there at different times, that might help. It's the same thing in the afternoon, starting at, I don't know, Mayor, what would you say, 3 o'clock, 4
Yeah.
o'clock?
3 and it goes till 8 now.
Yeah, you have the 5 hours in return, where if the vendors now were working till 6:30, 7, and again, you can't please everybody. We have noise ordinance. You can't use an electric gas blower, and people have to all work with us. But there's got to be a way to do it. I'm not a fan, and only because I don't think it would work, about workforce housing. I don't think that the workers would ever, jump on that, because work changes. You could have the East End go crazy, and then there could be whatever, a furlough or a thing when building permits were not given out for a year. That workforce is going to move to where the work is. So I'm not a fan of that. I don't know if it would work or not. The same thing with the with the workforce parking on the East End. Guys want their tools. They're not leaving their vans they're taking their stuff home. But anyway, some of these things I just wanted to bring up. And again, I appreciate you guys, and I don't mind being schooled. In fact, I enjoy it. But on the traffic circles, I did meet with Senator Palumbo about the Watermill traffic circles. That was a while ago with some of the representatives from the hamlet of Watermill. I support it 100%. I think it'll, first of all, create a beautiful hamlet in Watermill where Main Street would mean something, not just be traffic. And we did, again, we talked about it. We did a project on Old Mill Road, which is a little cut that causes a lot of traffic in Watermill, where we closed it while we were doing some drainage. We set up some cones, which would essentially form the traffic circle from Little Cobb to Montauk Highway. And the people that lived on Cobb Road wanted to know what happened. They could actually get out of their driveways. They could move. So there are some things. The light would be eliminated. You would be forced to do that whole circle. And again, I think it would create quite the main street for Watermill. But I think we have to look at trying to separate who's on the road at what times. And I think if maybe the town attorney could look at, if it's possible, if there could be a code that you can't be at somebody's residence till 9:30 in the town of Southampton. And again, I would start with the whole town, and then later you might lighten up on the west part of town, because they may not have the same restrictions. But I think
Charlie, on that, because I like the idea, but I've also heard some people not like the idea. But what if we look at that? Could we limit the amount of vehicles that are allowed per building permit approved? So that you don't have, when there's a project occurring, you don't have 17 vehicles going to that one site, and they're limited to a set number of vehicles.
so. We talked about that, and then we always revert back to enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way with all these building permits you're going to have anybody that's going to be able to monitor all of those. I think if it's across the board, look, we've had some interesting things. We've had a program where people, and I'm going to date myself, could take a Polaroid picture of somebody in a parking spot if it was handicapped, and they could send that to the police, and the police would be able to write a summons for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if all the neighbors knew that no one's supposed to be on that property till 9:30, the pool guy, the tennis court guy, the landscapers, and the fine went to the homeowner, and it increased very much each time. Those homeowners would make sure there are no vendors on their property at 9:30. It's just an idea.
Yeah, I like the idea. I wonder if it also comes down to simply revising the noise ordinances themselves.
Well, they're going to have to be there later, but I don't know if the noise ordinance, in the town you'd be from 9:30 to 6:30.
Right.
East Hampton you'd be from 10 to 7.
Right.
And then on the way home it would be spread out also.
Do you let's move on to the presentations, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, Bill, you have
Bill
something?
had a comment.
Oh, Bill, go ahead.
This is where I get schooled.
No, I think it's a great idea, and I've been meaning to talk to you about it, and I keep dropping the ball.
Oh, okay.
Building on your idea, the enforcement just got me, but I think I worked around it already in 30 seconds. When you issue a building permit, maybe you have, because you want to spread now you're going to have all your trade trying to come across, the canal, within an hour. And that's going to be, I think, difficult from a traffic standpoint. But what you could do is have different zones within the town, and in this zone you can start at 8:30, in this zone you can start at 9, in this zone you can start at 9:30, then 10. And now you can still enforce within the zone. The people who live in that zone know when their start time is, and you've spread the traffic out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so, well, you started it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be considered on that. The towns and villages that have changed their noise ordinances, which were enacted as quality of life ordinances for the residents. I don't think the towns and the villages created those. But that, that's why we have public hearings, and that's why we do things. The staggered hours concept is currently used more in office settings. Whether that's appropriate to try out here. We did make some efforts to get the schools to change their hours a little bit some years ago, but weren't terribly successful. Although some of their administrators have changed their individual work hours. And here at Town Hall, we have some employees that are, changed their hours a little bit. So there may be an opportunity to explore that option and explore the, office worker type option as well.
But Charlie, I will speak with the town attorney's office about it and have them
Thanks.
look into it, and we can have a work session on it.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria.
Good.
So yeah, we'll move on.
Move on. The next item, I'd like to present some additional traffic data.
And is that the same? And the 3 E's are in this, or?
And the 3 E's
Okay.
are part of this,
All right,
yes.
cool.
The first half will be on some more traffic information, and the second part, we'll talk about the 3 E's. Okay. As I said, we have a presentation here. Part of it is a follow-up to the May 1st presentation. You may remember I presented some traffic data, traffic volume data from there's a traffic counter just west of County Road 39 where the Peconic Bridge goes over Sunrise Highway. It has a 24/7 traffic counter, so there is constant counting of traffic volume eastbound, westbound. I presented some information on yearly totals and things like that. Donna, who's not here, so I'll have to give her her own presentation when she's here, or when I get a chance to see her. She had asked about breaking out eastbound and westbound traffic information. So the next chart, if you'll click one forward. Okay. As I said, this is taken from a traffic counter managed by the State Department of Transportation just west of where County Road 39 and Sunrise Highway merge. We had been looking in those earlier presentation, we looked at May and July, kind of isolated those figures for the whole year. We isolated those 2 months, and so I've looked at those two to provide eastbound traffic volumes and westbound traffic volumes for May 1st to 31st. The eastbound, the first column, is the average annual daily traffic, 22,500 vehicles roughly on a 7-day-a-week average going east, and on a 5-day-a-week average, that's with the 7 and the 5 above, the 5-day-a-week, the work week average is 25,500 vehicles going east every day. In July, those numbers increase. A 7-day average is 26,500 vehicles a day, and on the 5-day work week average, it's 29,800 vehicles. And you see the totals there in the last column for the month, eastbound and westbound. For May and July, you see those totals. You go over to the westbound column on the right, the average annual daily traffic for the month of May for 7 days a week average is 20,800 vehicles. The 5-day-a-week average is 25,000 vehicles. In July, that goes up to 25,200 vehicles. and 28,900 vehicles on the 5-day-a-week average. And that is from July of, and May and July of 2023. You'll see
Tom,
the total
Tom.
figures.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
So if you look at July, the total eastbound coming over the canal.
Yep.
900,000 for the week, 916
That's for the month.
for the month.
Yes.
And you see what's going back westbound for the month?
And that's just where I was going, Charlie. You picked that up.
They're all going through Southampton Village to get home.
Well, I think I looked at that. That's a possibility. I think more likely the possibility is that westbound, there is an exit at North Road before this traffic counter. So it's capturing all the eastbound traffic at the Peconic Bridge. It is capturing all the westbound traffic except what's getting off to get on North Road. And I think, I wish we had 24/7 type of data for 39, for Montauk Highway and going through the village. But I think as we discussed at the last meeting, they do periodical checks on those, but there wasn't really enough to kind of isolate that information. So I think the more likely explanation is the westbound vehicles are peeling off at North Road, you know, to go down to Hampton Bays. That's what I think it is. And then the figure for May, that's about 9.1% of all the annual traffic. And for July, it's about 11% of all the annual traffic. If we go to the next chart, we're going to look at the same information, but broken out on a chart by hour. So that top chart is the May traffic volume and the going east, and the chart right below it is the July traffic volume going east. The black line represents the 7-day average. The pink line is the 5-day work week average, or not average, but traffic flow. The yellow highlights are I put yellow highlights on there. I don't know if you can quite see them or not.
Barely.
Can barely see them. Let me see if my clicker would help.
I see him, Tom.
Yeah.
You see them?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a yellow highlight, little yellow dot. That is where the traffic volumes cross the 1,500 vehicle per hour mark. And I think this kind of dovetails a little bit with some of the information Bill and Alex were talking about traffic volumes. I picked 1,500 because more or less I think that's kind of when you begin to reach your peak in that area, or your traffic volumes. So 1,500 was kind of a nice target number there. You can see that the actual volume goes up in May. It peaks at a little over 2,500 vehicles per hour, and that's somewhere around the 5:30 a.m. Time period. It crosses 1,500, then it peaks at around 2,500 at about 5:30 or 6. That number is fairly close to what you see in July as far as that early morning peak. But you'll notice in July, and again, there's little yellow highlights on there. I'll have to work on a better color next time. But you'll see the little yellow highlights. The numbers peak or cross that 1,500 line at about the same time in the morning, go to roughly the same volume when they peak, but it's extended much later in the day to be above that 1,500 vehicle line in July, when you look at July compared to May. So throughout the whole month of July, the traffic volume is heavier throughout the entire day. So, and the next chart, if we'll go click one more there. Now, this is the same information going west. These are the same comparisons. Again, I have little yellow dots there, a little hard to see, but you can see that the westbound traffic begins to cross the 1,500 vehicle per hour line somewhere around 4 o'clock p.m. and continues in May until somewhere around 7, but it's later till around 8 in July. You'll also see that bottom chart, which is July, those volume numbers are much higher for a much longer period. It's much more of an angled curve there in May. It peaks much sooner, it peaks and drops back down. In July, it continues at a fairly high level. That's a 2,500 line that it's peaking at, is at about 2,500 vehicles. So that, let's see. Now, next chart. This chart we had looked at. I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. This was the original chart that I had presented in May, which showed those combined volumes, May and July, where we combined both east and west. And again, as you see, the totals in July are longer, higher in volume, and go longer into the day/early evening when you compare July to May. So now the next chart, and I'm going to give a shout out to Ron Hill, who I see is here. I was going through some of our old data, and this is from our town comprehensive plan update, the transportation elements portion of our town comprehensive plan. This is a chart, and I know Ron did this, compiled this. This is a chart from 2000, which shows the eastbound and westbound volumes for the month of June. We don't have May or July in that report. We have June, so I'm using June. This shows, and I think you can see pretty quickly, the numbers were peaking and then dropped down a lot more, both eastbound and westbound, than they did 23 years later in 2020. And it's also interesting to note that yellow highlight line is it peaks at 1,700 vehicles eastbound and peaks at 1,800 vehicles westbound. So we saw the peaks on the early ones were up in the 2,500, 3,000 vehicle range. Now, remember, the road was widened, a lane was added in each direction between 2000 and 2023. As you know, Bill mentioned, there was widening in 2008 and 2013. But the peak volumes were much less and much shorter periods of time 23 years ago. And just to, again, pick up on something Bill talked about, I have been gathering some information. It's not actually part of my presentation, but based on what he was talking about, I wanted to share some information. I've been looking up census data for East Hampton Town and Southampton Town, because as we know, one of the core reasons for the traffic volume increases are increased population. In 1990, the town of Southampton population, according to the census, was 45,351 people. In 2020, it's 69,036 people. So that was a 52% increase in the town population in 30 years. In East Hampton Town, couldn't find the 1990 data, so I have the 2000 data. Was East Hampton Town had a population of 21,457. In 2020, 20 years later, had a population of 28,388 for a 32% increase. So Southampton increased 50% in 30 years. East Hampton increased 32% in 20 years. So just kind of reinforces some of the other findings. Now, what I'm going to jump to a little bit, talking a little bit about traffic safety. That is, as we know, part of our charge here, and we've heard from many residents on this issue. So, Paula, if you would go to the next slide. We're going to talk about some concepts in traffic safety, and if you'll click to the next one. And this is for folks that have been doing a lot of Googling. I know people do a lot of Googling and searching and learning a lot about traffic safety. So I wanted to talk briefly about the concepts. The traditional traffic safety approach has been what's been called the 3 E's: education, engineering, and enforcement. The concepts have been evolving and changing over time, and one of the things you hear a lot now about these days is something called Vision Zero. As I said, it's kind of an evolution. Some people might say it's a revolution in the approach to traffic safety issues. But Paula, if you would go to the next slide. This is kind of your traditional view. You have your engineering of the roads and of the highways. You have your education, which in this case is driver training class, and can also be supplemented by things like the Mothers Against Drunk Driving effort and the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee effort, where they run advertising about, safe driving and no texting and no drinking and no driving. And then you have the third leg, which is the enforcement aspect, which is the chief and his folks getting out there and writing tickets and catching people, driving badly. That's kind of been the traditional approach to it. We use proven traffic engineering principles when designing and managing the roads, and you couple that with law enforcement and consumer education for the safety of all road users. And when we talk about all road users, we're talking about motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians, and public transit users. Another aspect of this complementary concept is something called complete streets, which is a similar approach where you need to take everybody into account when you're designing your roads. The town in 2011 actually took the first steps towards adopting a complete streets approach to our roadway design. And we'll maybe talk about that further at another meeting. If you could go to the next one. Okay. What's evolved or evolving now is the concept Vision Zero. You've been seeing a lot about this, reading a lot. What is Vision Zero? Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. First implemented in Sweden in the 1990s, Vision Zero has proved successful across Europe, and now it's gaining momentum in major American cities. There are a number of cities throughout the country that have signed on to this concept. I think the closest one to us that I know has gotten some publicity is Hoboken. They've been very aggressive in their approach, but there are an awful lot of places that are kind of taking this concept. It's gaining many followers. This, I should point out, this slide is taken from the Vision Zero Network website. The Vision Zero Network is an advocacy organization for this concept. Now on the next slide, show you a comparison of traditional approach to their the Vision Zero concept. And I will say right off the bat that this is, again, from their website. These points are theirs. I'm not sure I'm 100% in agreement with all of these things. That traditional approach, traffic deaths are inevitable. We need perfect turning behavior. Is that?
Human behavior.
Human behavior, excuse me. I'm a little fuzzy on this. Prevent collisions, individual responsibility, and saving lives is expensive. That's kind of what they say is the traditional approach. Their approach is that traffic deaths are preventable. There's, again, I can't read my
Integrate
own.
human failing and approach.
Thank you. The human failing part of it is a little more forgiving, I think, than what they say the traditional approach is, and they want to prevent fatal and severe crashes, and it's a more holistic system than the traditional system that had your three legs. And saving lives is not expensive. So that's, again, the advocacy group's position, points of view on this, and I think that's what, kind of we're evolving to more of that approach. And I should point out, as you see from this, their focus is on preventing fatal and severe crashes and injuries. And a lot, as you read through their literature, a lot of that is focused on speeding, because I think, as we know, and our traffic engineers in the room know, the higher speeds people travel, the greater the chance of severe, the difference between an accident at 20 miles an hour and an accident at 30 or 40 miles an hour is tremendous in terms of human, injury or fatalities. So that's where their focus is. The next slide is This is now how it's translating or evolving into the Federal Highway Administration, our state and arm of the US DOT, the Federal Highway Administration. Here's how they look at it. Well, this first chart is how Vision Zero looks at it. They have a leg with system planners and policymakers. They have connection then to the individual road users and the responsibility of individual road users to act in a safe manner. And then the third leg is the follow-up reviews and procedures when road users make mistakes, as they say, to review designs and policies when severe and fatal accidents happen. The last chart, if you'll go one more, thank you, Paula. This is how the Federal Highway Administration sees the Vision Zero approach as what they call the safe system concept. This is from the Federal Highway Administration website, their safe system approach webpage. They break the concept into 5 areas of focus, the 5 E's: safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, which speaks to the engineering, and post-crash care. So each of these are different, it's evolving, and while these approaches are evolving, it's important to note that coordinated, cooperative approach is an element of all of them. I think we're going to go deeper into this topic as the committee work progresses into a final report and recommendations for the town board to move forward.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask about it?
So thank you, Tom, for that. The data is certainly very, very interesting and is pertinent to our study and our work in drafting the final report. I wanted, before we get into the review of the emails and public comment, and we don't have a lot of time, we're going to want to make sure we have enough time to read some of the cards from those who wish to speak. And there's probably some folks on Zoom too. Let's take number 7, agenda item number 7, police updates from Chief Kiernan, out of order. We'll just hear from the chief really briefly. I know you don't have a lot for us, but you may have some updates.
I will be brief so we can get on to public comment. I want to say that I know the county engineers, Bill and Alex, for many years. I've worked on some of the projects they presented with them and on County Road 39. And I trust and agree with the opinion they presented today. But from my and I won't say but from my perspective, although we may need to be patient and tolerant of the congestion at the moment and for the immediate future, we do not have to tolerate the aggressive driving. We do not have to tolerate the takeover of neighborhoods during those 5-hour prime time peak periods, PPs. We can through enforcement, we can tone that down. We can bring those speeds down. We can make people fear coming here and speeding through our roads. We can do that. We do need police officers, and it's happening. The police department is growing. We've been budgeted for 106 police officers this entire year, and we've only been operating with 97, 98, 99. That's not anybody's fault. We just recently had a police academy, a police test come out, and a police academy starts August 16th. So August 16th, we're going to be back to 106, and I hope we're going to continue to grow in the next year and the year after. And that growth is going to mean traffic enforcement, more traffic enforcement. So I just wanted to say that, and
Did you want to mention the grant or not right now?
the grant.
Of the LPRs.
The LPR grant. Well, there's 2 grants. One grant, there's a there's a technology grant we received from New York State, which we are going to use, and the mayor will be happy about this because we're going to use that. We have a robust drone program, and when County Road 39 has an accident, it closes down for hours and then the village becomes immobile. Our grant, we're going to use that particular technology grant on a drone that will now do our crime scenes from the air and do it within a fraction of the time that we're doing it now, waiting for the state police and the county medical examiner to come and help us with the crime scene. Now our own drone operators will be doing those things on our own and in much faster time.
So those would be for accidents on 39? Is that
For
correct?
accidents,
Or
wherever,
everywhere.
we're everywhere in the town, and including all the villages will have access to those operators and technology. The other grants. No, that's.
I think that was the main.
That was the one.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate that. And we just want to have a review. Tom has a printout. Do you have the printout, Tom, of the emails?
I sure do.
Before we get to that, Tom, I just want to go over a couple of communications that have come by the task force. There are others, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to read a few, and I'm going to also distill them. I'm not going to include everything in them in terms of the language, but I will get to the basic gist of all these communications. One came from the Watermill CAC. They said that since the town appears to have a plan or concept plan for the entire back road system north and south of the highway, can these plans be shared with the community so the residents can better understand what the town long-term goals are regarding these roads? Is the goal to use the residential back roads as an auxiliary highway as a means to alleviating traffic on 39 or 27? Do we have a plan? I'm not sure of a plan.
I don't know what she's referring.
Tom?
They're
I think
referring
maybe
to.
I think there was some discussion about some of the intersections up in the Deerfield, Head Pond, Lower Seven Ponds area, but there's no
Okay.
plan that I'm aware of.
Okay. The CAC would request speed monitors at either end of the hamlet at Route 27. The CAC would ask the town to consider uniform speed limits of 30 miles per hour throughout the entire hamlet of Watermill, both on the back roads and on Route 27. Although we can't dictate the speed limit on Route 27. That's
No.
a state road, so.
And that was lowered to 40 a couple of years ago from 45.
Right. Okay. Roundabouts at either end of the hamlet on Route 27 were introduced at the last meeting, and we talked about it again today. Something being considered by the town. Are these plans to gather community input about this proposal, and when would that occur? So these aren't official town plans. We're just evaluating it. We're looking at it. And Charlie, you had something you want to add?
They may be referring to, we had a thought about the traffic circle at Lower and Upper Seven Ponds.
Okay.
But that needs to have private property
Mm-hmm.
used, so that's still in the works. And we're adding a turning lane going west off of Head Pond to Upper Sevens.
Okay. Will there be any CAC input on that? Or
I met with them, we
Okay.
spoke. They want to see the plans. I haven't gotten them from our engineer yet.
Okay.
But it's pretty simple stuff.
Okay. This came in. We live at 126 on White's Lane. We are just east of Sabonic Inlet. The limit is 30 miles per hour. The vast majority of cars are traveling at 25 to 55 miles per hour in a straightaway. There are no speed monitors. We responded to that, and we're working on getting, thanks to the responsiveness of our chief of police and also highway, coordinating together to get a speed monitor over there. It may actually be there today. We also got something about Henry Road. They also requested a speed monitor, and that's happening.
Is that in the village?
No, not in the
No,
village.
it's just,
The other Henry Road.
we have Henry Street.
Yeah.
Oh.
We also got something from somebody from Tuckahoe. I am regularly passed on a double yellow line on Millstone Brook while driving. Often the stop sign at the left turn onto Sabonic Inlet is ignored entirely. So just something to put on our radar in terms of maybe enforcement. We'll also, I'm working with my office and Tom Neely and the town engineer to maybe look at doing a site visit over there. The no left turn, this is somebody else, the no left turn onto Shrubland from 6 to 10 a.m. is being totally ignored. In addition, the speed at which folks are driving down Sabonic Road after making this illegal turn is way above the speed limit all day. So we'll look at maybe trying to put a speed monitor.
We had a monitor
You
there.
had a monitor there?
The average speed was like 36 miles an hour.
Okay.
So they might be over by a little bit.
Okay. This person is a resident on Mitchell Lane in Bridgehampton. I'm sure you are already considering it closely, but I urge you to help with the traffic on Mitchell Lane, which has become untenable with the nonstop construction, rampant development. Is there no limit? It has become difficult to leave the driveway. I have had to move my bedroom to the basement. The traffic begins at 5 a.m. and slows at 7 p.m. The winter months are better due to the aforementioned construction, not just new houses, but old ones built and rebuilt. That's a question about zoning there, and we'll have to take a look at Mitchell Lane. I don't know if we have before. I think we may have, but we'll review that again. This is coming from the Greenfield Road community. They would like to hear more about County Road 39 and it being patrolled and the police presence. I'm happy to say that we worked with the chief of police. Did you want to comment on that, or did you want me to just? Yeah, the chief of police will be able to provide an officer over there at the corner near the gas station for maybe an hour or two, a couple days a week. To hopefully, monitor what's going on there and ease folks' concerns. We are working on that, and we understand that traffic issue there is very, problematic. Councilman Bill Pell recently actually, and the highway department met with DPW about Greenfield Road, discussed possible options of opening the mouth of that street to maybe enhance visibility. I don't know if anything has come of that. I think that would be a difficult task for the town to do, but we are looking at all different areas of that particular matter, and we hope, and we're still collaborating with the county executive's office as well, with county DPW, so we do hope to have some sort of solution on that. I went through that, and this is we received some letters of support from folks about the Noyak Road improvements, but we also received some concern about the project with the sidewalks. Some people believe that it won't reduce the speeding. Another consideration is who's going to maintain the proposed sidewalk. Also about changes to the aesthetic beauty of the community were mentioned as well, and concern for that particular matter. Tom, did you want to just review other comments that we've received?
Yeah, you got a couple there that are on my list, and a couple I'm going to have to get from you to put on our master list. Since our last meeting, we have heard from Debbie Harrington, who actually spoke, and we should point out that these are the emails we've received. They don't include the people that have spoken at our meetings unless they follow up with an email as we request. So Debbie Harrington, with a lot of suggestions and concerns regarding County Road 39, regarding the McGee Street intersection. Jay Fitzpatrick sent a follow-up to his presentation at our last meeting, and he would support workers starting later, working later, and only working Monday through Friday. Cindy Lavecchio was following up on her prior request or petition to lower the speed limit to 20 miles per hour on Cedar Lane in Remsenburg.
Yeah, we went out there, and highway got a speed monitor placed over there.
Okay, and then I had one about Henry Street, but I think you covered.
Yeah.
So looks like between your communications and what I've been tracking, we probably have about 40 communications from residents.
A little over. Like yeah, and all of those communications, we're looking at everything, some of which require more internal and engineering opinions. We can't just act on every single one that comes to us. We try to. Trust me, we try to. But also recognizing, too, that our speed monitors that we place, especially the portable ones, are limited. So we can put them in some places, but we have a limited amount of them. There are some that are actually transportable and also do get fixed and planted into the ground. We recently procured 5 of those that they actually went and were installed thanks to the efforts of the highway department and also some site visits that we had with the highway department and the police department. Thank you, Chief, for helping us out in Hampton Bays and Wakeman Road. But I also want to let everyone know that Councilman Pell and I are also and with the supervisor's help, we're going to try to get an additional 5 speed monitors procured so we can have additional ones, because we are limited in the amount of them, but we also understand that there is a psychological element to speed monitors. If people see them and they're flashing, you kind of want to be a little cautious when you're driving. And I know that for many of our fellow neighbors, you have reported to me that you feel safer when they're there. So we'll do everything that we can to make sure we get.
Yeah, we should be
additional
able to work
monitors.
that into the budget.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we go on to public comment? We have a couple of cards here, and then we'll move to Zoom. The first person is, and by the way, you'll have 3 minutes, and then you'll wrap up. So what? Yeah, I'll do it. Thank you, though. Thank you.
No, you mean wrap up in 3 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Not 3 minutes, then wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll try our best. I like to be, courteous of everybody who came out. Thank you for being here, by the way. This is really for all of you to express some of your issues and frustrations with the traffic and for us to figure out how we can be helpful. So Larry Aiden is up first. And again, you have 3 minutes.
Please don't start the clock till I get to the
Yep.
Hi, I'm Larry Adam. This is my wife, Claire. We are full-time residents at 653 Halsey Lane in Bridgehampton. I'm going to do most of the talking. She'll tell me if I forget anything. She also adds a little more gravitas to this. I also, just to say at the beginning, I work in media and entertainment. I've never been in one of these things, but I'd say this to Maria, whose office was so responsive to me. You actually, and many of you look exactly like your headshots, which is very rare today. My emphasis, and I'm glad the conversation steered into safety. We've been in that town for over 25 years, and there is a stretch between Mecox and Paul's on Halsey, which I know some of you know, where the speed limit's 30, and I would say the average speed is 50. And I have reached out to the Southampton Town Police a number of times. I just have to say, Chief, you guys have always been incredibly, there's civility and responsiveness. And I get that there's only so many officers, and yet I wanted to elevate this, so I wrote to the supervisor's office and was, I must say, struck by how quickly I got a response from Jackie in her office, and then the invitation to be here today. And I just want to compliment you. This is quite, I feel like we're very fortunate to be involved and invited to speak on this initiative. And I just would say that, including, we appreciate that the first part of the meeting is going to take years, if not decades. And yet I'm hoping that something can be done on this front sooner than that. I get the impression from the last few moments of conversation that's true. I don't want to have to be that guy who I read about somewhere who sat in a garden chair with a hat on, looking somewhat official, and a blow dryer that made people think they were being tracked speed-wise. The speed monitor, there is one of those nearby on Paul's, which I suspect helps. I get the impression from your comments, sir, that yes, it does, psychologically lower it. I guess I'll just ask a question, unless Claire wants to add to this. Is it possible that you could do what they do in New York City, which is do the photographic tickets, which don't require manpower? I'm sure there's money involved, but we've all gotten tickets where it's your car in a certain place when you shouldn't have been, or making a turn.
Right. Or in addition, or either that, or even have some speed bumps, because as you point out, as the population has increased so substantially, every summer it just feels like the number of cars going 50 miles an hour down the street, where people are walking with their babies and people are biking all summer long. And, we don't have the luxury of having bike lanes or pedestrian sidewalks. And so, all summer long people are walking. And my feeling is, having walked around and also biking, I just feel that constantly this is an accident waiting to happen. On our street, it's gotten so much worse, which is why we're here today. But I'm sure we're not the only ones. You can hear other people's comments as well, is that I think there's a real pedestrian and bike issue right now. It is exacerbated during the summer, and none of us want to see people get hurt or, God forbid, killed, and something needs to be done about that.
So is there a speed monitor on your street?
No,
So
There's just around the corner on Paul's Lane.
right,
Yes.
but not
they're
on our
Halsey.
street.
They're
We're
on
on
Halsey.
Halsey could use one, and again,
Could
I
we
say
get
this
one
with
of
great respect, because I know we're not the only,
Can we move
lots of
one?
others are affected by this, but there was somebody, I believe, the police were discreet about it, but we heard from neighbors, somebody was killed about 2 years ago, either a pedestrian or a biker down the road closer to Paul's, and we don't know for sure exactly which
No,
it was, but
yeah,
it was still,
it was closer to Mecox.
it was close, no, it was on Halsey, but closer to Paul's than to
Oh, okay.
Mecox, towards the,
Yeah,
anyway, thank you for the
yeah, we
opportunity
would love
speak.
to see something on our street, bottom line, if that's
Really appreciate
possible.
this. Thank you.
We would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
We
coming
appreciate it.
today.
No,
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
Thank you. And you were Claire, right?
Claire.
Okay, so
Do you have the
okay,
address,
I-
Michael?
Yes, I do.
Jackie was great, thank you.
Oh, she is wonderful.
So we have no more cards. So we'll move to Zoom. Did you? I didn't know I had to sign. Yes, if you want to speak, there's Jackie was in the front. You could fill out a card if you wanted to speak. Paula will get you one. Yeah,
What's the other one?
She could just introduce herself.
that's okay. I know, but we do have to have a record of what you're saying too. But no, if you don't mind, let her give you a card. And actually, while you're doing that, let me just go over a couple of things in summary while you fill that out. I just want to, based on some of the public comments, you mentioned speed cameras. We've been actively talking about that, this group. So with that, I want to kind of emphasize just several main highlights that I think are going to be reflected into our final report, as well as just generally what our mission here has been. We want to fill an existing traffic and safety director position. We have it currently. And what we'd like to do, we'd like to have that position obtain concerns from the community and respond directly to constituents. And that it's a way for that position, to the person who's ever in that position, to coordinate with the highway department, the town engineer, the police department. Right now, the way it works is, you could contact Charlie's office, but most of the time people contact our office. But what we really need to do is we need to take, I think, more of a scientific approach to some of this work, and also make sure that there is somebody who's active, that's their job, to actively coordinate with the highway department, with the police department and town engineer, because we're all, as council members, supervisor, we're all stretched thin. We all are focusing on a lot of different things, so it's not very efficient for us to handle every single comment that comes to us regarding traffic safety. But if somebody's job is to actually coordinate that issue, we hope that could be the case. So we want to fill that position. We are looking at speed cameras on 39 for traffic safety. That would require some state enabling legislation. There are alternatives to those cameras that we're looking at, and those are ongoing conversations that I'm having with the chief, the police chief, and our town attorney's office. We mentioned this before. We want to invest in more speed monitors. We hope to do that. We want to look at also interim. Thank you, Paula. Interim traffic measures to County Road 39 until the county project begins. Can we look at cones? Can we look at circles, especially where it backs up on 39 and North Sea Road? Can we look at something in the interim time frame before the project begins to help mitigate some of the existing issues that we're facing? And I know for the next meeting, our co-chair Charlie McCardle will present on something that he's thinking about. We have to look at zoning and permitting. I think with respect to the questions of zoning on 39, we should resort to the 2015 planning study that was done, and maybe bring on our planning director, Shearer, to discuss that with us. Can we Can we limit the amount of vehicles that are allowed per building permit? I mentioned that earlier. Should we have a specific pass, like an easy pass for non-residential contractors? That's something else we should think about. And by the way, it's not just my ideas. These are things that have been brought up through these meetings as a summary to all of you and to all those listening. Can we reinstate no left turns from the side roads onto 39 for safety mitigation? Let's look further into staggered work hours or noise ordinance changes. Worker staging areas have also been mentioned, where workers can keep some of their materials and then get on public transit. In line with the 3 E's, which is educational, can we put on more PSAs, public service announcements? We hope to work with our partners with CTV, our audiovisual team, to maybe put on some traffic safety videos for the public to remind people that it's summertime, be courteous, etc. We need more police officers. We mentioned that, but we need them specifically for traffic violations and complaints, which we do have the police department does have a good job handling. But what the issue is volume. So that's really that's an external issue of the police department. This is a volume issue. We reviewed the data. You saw the information in front of you. So we really need to get at the more systemic issues of traffic, and also expanding the county's on-demand bus program. I think it's a great tool. The county unveiled a couple of years ago the on-demand bus, which runs between Sag Harbor and Southampton. A lot of people use it. I think it's been very successful. I'd like to maybe at some point in the future get sort of an update on how successful the program is running currently, and what is the feasibility in expanding. I know they recently expanded in East Hampton. Let's see how that's running, and maybe we can think about including Bridgehampton Commons and maybe Hampton Bays in the future. That's for another time to discuss that, but it's something I think would be really, really important. You had your comment, and you are Miss McLaughlin?
No, my name is Martha McClanahan.
McClanahan.
I live in Southampton, and I've heard many interesting ideas, but they all seem to focus on County Road 39. I live on Gin Lane. My friend Bruce Bachman lives on Ox Pasture Road. My son lives on Lee Avenue, and he cannot get home. The traffic in the village, Job's Lane, Windmill Lane, you've talked nothing about the fact that Southampton Village is being seriously choked. Absolutely. To take 40 minutes from my house to go to dinner in Hampton Bays is really it's ruining the village. People don't want to go out at night. You've really got to do something about the village.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say, Marty, as you know, it's the volume of cars and the fact that County Road 39 cannot handle the cars. Everyone uses Waze. Waze tells every driver how to manipulate the village streets, the residential streets, to their advantage. And unfortunately, we're the ones that are paying the price. So I'm not sure if anyone has ideas. I'm all ears for ideas. I don't know what to do to decrease the volume. But it's really a volume problem. And until we can address the volume problem, there are still cars going to be coming through smaller streets. I mean, really, I'm absolutely, any ideas can be put forward to me, to this committee, and we will address them immediately. But I'm speaking to your son tomorrow, I believe. But anyway, again, we are trying to do what we can, but we are constrained by the roads and the infrastructure that we have. I think we're trying to do that. I mean, again, Bruce or Marty, anyone here from the village that has any ideas, please bring them forward, because we will try them. But it's just difficult to deal with the volume of cars.
Okay, I have to stick with I'm sorry. Lee, from Lee Avenue, we have Santo Domingo or Lauren.
Lauren.
Right? Sorry.
Can I see the cards?
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on saying anything. Thank you very much, you guys too, for your presentation. Let's see. I did want to say I really appreciated your presentation, and I think that's why some of our Southampton Village people are here today, because we really wanted to understand what's going to happen on the County Road 39. We were feeling like maybe our problems could be solved if that problem were alleviated. So I think we're here today to be like, what's the proposal? What's happening? And I think it's kind of clear that nothing's happening in the town that's going to alleviate the problem in the village, at least for a really long time. And I agree with thinking big, and I'm all about big projects, and I think that it's something we really need to look at. But I also really agreed with Maria Moore, who was approaching it. It seemed like a parallel path and doing small things that would make a meaningful difference. So roundabouts, things like that. I mean, I think that it's important to have a parallel path while we're waiting for something big to be doing small things. So I felt that is very inspiring.
I think we all feel that way.
Yeah, and it's great, and I think they will make a difference. And I also, I don't have the name of the slide, but when Mr. Neely was presenting, Mr. McCardle, you called out there was a discrepancy in the numbers between eastbound and westbound, and you suggested that perhaps some of that peel off are westbound traffic that's going through the village. And Mr. Neely, we don't have clear data on that subject, but I think that's something we should really look at, especially as it pertains to Lee, because I think we could probably unofficially and unscientifically tell you that traffic, the westbound traffic, is coming through our small neighborhood. And Mr. and Mrs. Aiden on Halsey Neck, you can have our speed monitor, because we no longer need it. Because where we used to have a speed problem on our street, we now have a problem. Like Mrs. McClanahan said, we cannot get in and out of our driveway, we cannot move. The traffic averages 2 to 3 miles per hour. If you're on the north side of the street, we can't exit. So I appreciate what you once felt. I wish we had the days of speeding traffic. We have, traffic is just not moving at all. And I also appreciate, Chief Kiernan, that you're adding new police officers, because I felt like in the past, whenever we brought stuff up, it always came down to enforcement. So I'm really happy to be here, that we'll be adding new police officers. And when we add some of these suggestions that we've made, things like no left turn from the estate section onto Hill Road, no through traffic or commercial traffic through the estate section, things like this, proposals that we've all had and supported that were really rejected because we didn't have enforcement. So I feel like with the addition of new police officers, maybe enforcement on some of these things can happen, and then the changes also can happen. And
3 minutes, if you could just wrap
yeah,
up.
and I was just going to say, and my 13-year-old son is going to be really excited to hear about the drone program. That's awesome.
And we have your contact information?
If it's legible, yes.
If we do find some information from the Hill Street area, we'll certainly share it.
Just have your address. You don't have your phone number. Okay.
Email, something.
You could talk to Tom after.
And I just want to add one thing. So, Lauren, we have actually added no truck traffic on certain routes, such as Ox Pasture and Halsey Neck Lane, and we've put signs up about the weight of the trucks. And I actually do have a team on the police force in the village that specifically goes out with actually the weights and measures to again give these people tickets if they are driving on those streets. But again, it's difficult to be everywhere at every moment. But we actually did add those restrictions on streets just in the last year, and we purchased the weights and measuring equipment to weigh those vehicles so that we can give them tickets for using those streets. So we do have a team that's doing that, and obviously we just need to do more of that.
All right.
But thank you very much.
We do have to move on to our Zoom. So Kevin, is there anybody on Zoom? Because we only have this room until 4:00. Okay.
Look at that.
All right. So let me just wrap up with saying we're hoping to have our next meeting late August, early September. We don't have an official date yet, but we'll work on it. Did we have a date? We did have a date. Sorry about that. I'll wait for Paula to get that date. But we have a couple of items on the agenda that may be of interest. We're going to be reviewing some previous studies that the town had done in the past but shelved, and they're collecting dust. We want to see, is there any merit to any of these? Also, our co-chair, Charlie McCardle, will be presenting on a possible cone model program on 39. We'll have a funding discussion, how we could get state funding and federal funding for some of the projects and how that process actually, what it entails. And maybe also looking at co-chair Neely has some ideas about County Road 80, right, in Hampton Bays.
Right.
So that's what's on our agenda for next month. Feel free again to write us at traffic@southamptontowny.gov. And our co-chairs and our chief and myself and many of our members look at those emails. Even if you don't get you'll get a response because there's an automatic response. But we're looking at everything that comes through, and it's actually helping advise us on how we move forward with our final report. So I'm not sure. Do we have a date or?
September 18th.
September 18th is our next meeting.
4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock, right here. And there'll be, again, public portion where you can come and provide comment to us. We thank you for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. That's very efficient, putting it right in there.
Yeah. If I don't do it now.